My name is Allison Felis, and this is I'll Follow You, a podcast featuring light and lively conversations about film, music, and creative culture, coming to you from the People's Republic of Rogers Park on the far northeast side of Chicago. Hello and welcome back, my darlings. This week on the show, I'm delighted to be speaking with a very dear friend, the theatrical impresario and president of NoHo himself, Mr. Paul Storiale. Paul is the artistic director for the Defiance Theater Company, the president and founder of the Valley Theater Awards in Los Angeles, and creator of the award-winning stage play The Columbine Project. He's also the creator of the web series Gossip Boy, which you can stream on Amazon Prime, and a successful comedic actor in his own right, having performed for many years in the dinner theater phenomenon Tony and Tina's Wedding, and having recently toured the country as part of the cast of My Big Gay Italian Wedding. And if that's not enough of a full plate for him, Paul is also a Los Angeles elected public official, currently serving as president of the NoHo Neighborhood Council, an advisory board created by the Los Angeles City Charter to provide improved access to government and make government more responsive to local needs in the North Hollywood community. Today, we chat about how to create a little bit of healthy antagonism among your cast during rehearsals, establishing a container for catharsis in a live theater space, and the secret of never having to audition as an actor ever again. And blackout. So, hi, Paul. Thank you so much for being with me today here on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Allison. I've been listening to your podcasts. They're great.
Oh, thank you for saying so. I'm glad that someone is listening. I shouldn't say that. People are listening. I know people are listening.
I feel like I know your guests somehow.
Oh, that's good. I mean,
They're
you do
so
know
good.
some of them, like personally, but...
Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited to have you on here today because, like, we were sort of chatting, beforehand about, like, people becoming adults and, and so it's like, you know, I don't want to talk about, like, oh, the years that we've known each other and stuff like that, but, like, you know, we've known each other for a while and, like, seeing each other sort of grow into the people that we've become, is a very beautiful thing. And I feel like in the years that we've known each other, you have traversed many miles, both physically and sort of creatively. So I'm excited to get to talk to you about, like, everything that you're up to.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. But speaking of the everybody becoming adults, the people that I did know that I listened to on your podcast, like, it's crazy how it's just crazy hearing, you know, when we knew each other as kids pretty much, and they're so adult now. Ugh.
But I also sort of feel like we're all sort of becoming the people that you could imagine us becoming, you know? It's like there's
So
a through
true.
line. Like there's a way that it makes sense, like the way that people grow into sort of like the stuff that they do. And it's like, oh, of course that's where you were headed. Like, I may not have been able to predict that, but it makes sense, you know?
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah, you're right.
Well, and it's, like, super true of you because, like, you know, I've always known you as this, like, creative and, you know, sort of a leader of men, shall we say. And you, like, that's what you do. Like, you're a professional creative person and you're also, like, in charge of a lot of things. So do you want to just sort of, like, give us the high points just to start off with and we can kind of spider off from there?
Yeah. So oh boy, a lot of leading. Never imagined myself to be a leader. I guess I have because I'm kind of a bossy person. But where do we start? I got involved in theater back in 2006 here in LA. Actually, I moved here in 2005 and started to direct and produce shows on my own because when I first moved here, I got into the mortgage industry, so I had a little bit of money to spend, and I was like, theater, that's where I need to do. That's where this money needs to go. And so I started managing a theater for somebody as I was producing. And then word spread through the community that he's a good manager. And so now I have 6 theaters that I manage, two different owners, but not the original. So I became a leader in the arts community here in the NoHo Arts District in LA. And
I always call you the president of NoHo because that's what you are to me in my brain.
Well, I am. I'm the president of the neighborhood council. They used to call me the mayor, and then when I got the president, it wasn't so. The mayor just wasn't good enough for me. So I'm just kidding. But now I am the president of the neighborhood council. The neighborhood council is a system in Los Angeles where it is a elected public official. You're elected through the city clerk's office. There are elections, and there are people that are running for seats in each neighborhood has a neighborhood council. So basically your community is voting for you to represent them in their best interest. Our board is 23 people who live and work in the community. And I've been fortunate enough to be on this board for 6 years now, president for 3. And it just gives you, because you work with the city councilman's office for your area, and you get to see things from a completely different perspective. The creation of this was so that the communities were able to have a say-so in what happens in their neighborhood. And so you vote on things like, does it enhance your community? Does it make your community look bad? And it's really an amazing thing. It kind of puts the power into the hands of the people who live and work in the community. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. Very busy.
Well, to me, like, I love the combination of, like, the way that you've been able to take, I think of you as this creative actor, director, writer person, but then it makes so much sense then that you're in this, like, council, neighborhood council situation where, you're basically sort of directing. I mean, that's kind of what you do, like, just in this more sort of governmental capacity. So it seems like this, like, perfect marriage of, like, taking your strengths and sort of like turning them outward into the community.
Oh my God, I'm taking everything I learned from theater and putting it into it. For instance, nobody can be more dramatic than I can. So I know how to, it's the same as theater, because what you're doing is you're managing personalities. And when you're when you're producing a play or directing a play, it's not just blocking and making a great show, but it's also managing the different personalities and knowing how to talk to this person. And that's very much different from talking to that person, how to, in directing. It's the same thing on this. It's, everybody has their own opinions and that's great. But how they voice their opinions is a different animal. And so you have to kind of manage the personalities and make sure everybody's happy. I make sure everyone's happy. That's all I want to do. Are you happy? Are you happy? That makes me happy.
But then that gets people pulling in the same direction, which is, again, another skill that you need from theater. Like, everyone needs to be pointed to the same goal. And I can imagine that's similar with the council stuff.
It is true. It is very true. Yeah. It's fun. It's fun. I have a great time. I've never missed a board meeting. It is so fun. I have a great time. In fact, it's non-pay. It's, you don't get paid for this. But there's food at the meetings. But the great thing about it is having a say and being a leader in your community and making changes that are really important. We have a huge development situation going on here. So our neighborhood has been gentrified since I've lived here, gentrified 2,000%. It's insane. When I first moved here, I could stand on the street at 8:00 p.m. and there'd be not a sound now oh my gosh, we went from one bar to choose from, and now we have about 13 or 15 in within one block. And the noise level is crazy, which turns me into an old man where I'm like, get off my sidewalk, kids. This isn't what it always used to be.
Well, you were amazing. I mean, like so just for a little bit of background context, like I hadn't seen you in like years and years and years since you moved away from Chicago and moved to LA, like you said, in 2005. And I hadn't seen you since then. And when my partner Brian and I were in Los Angeles this summer of 2018, and you very kindly like took us on a tour of, the little theaters. Well, I shouldn't say little theaters, but the theaters that you manage, and which was amazing. And then you very generously helped set us up a show at one of the theaters. And as we were then, when we came back 6 months later or whatever, and you were kind of like, okay, we'll do this when you come in, and then do this, and make sure, and just like the way that you were sort of able to play the neighborhood like an instrument. Like you're really like profound at knowing like, okay, well, this is like, don't put a sign on the door that says the show is free because you're going to get like creepy bums coming in, and just like the level of your awareness of how to do that is like, it was so cool to like watch you just like be in your element in that way.
Oh my God. It's so frustrating and stressful to know all that stuff too, because people, they come in, and by the way, you guys were amazing. And it was so nice to have you guys at our theater. It was such a pleasant, there was no stress for me because you guys already had a show ready. But man, it was so nice to hear you guys interact with the audience and tell your stories and your music, and seeing people I haven't seen in a long time that came to see your show, Nick, and his partner. My God, it was so nice to see them. And isn't he wonderful? His partner,
wonderful. Oh yeah,
well,
Bill Benson.
Nick, of course, but Bill, he's such a nice guy. But it was so nice to have you guys. Thank you for doing that. I should be thanking you, not the other way around.
And that was like a really, again, not to like dwell on this thing. Well, actually, I'll put a link in the show notes to, we've got the whole performance recorded and up on YouTube, so people can sort of, it's not the vibe of being in the room. It's always different when you see a playback. But no, that was really, that show was really special for us too, because I feel like it was sort of like achievement unlocked. It was like in doing that show, it sort of pointed a way forward for us as musicians to sort of like this new level of performance that we're still sort of getting our heads around, where it's like taking my background in like musical theater and jazz and that kind of stuff, and then taking Brian's sort of like punk rock DIY ethos, and sort of like, he's always been very good about like really being really scrappy about like setting up his own shows in Chicago and elsewhere, and combining those two sort of like in this black box theater environment. It just felt like, oh, there's like way more to explore in this. And so we're sort of, we're very indebted to you for like giving us that opportunity, because we, we would have done something else, but it was cool to do it specifically there, because it sort of felt like, okay, this is pointing us towards like a new way to meld what we do together.
It's interesting because people from my, I think of you as from my childhood, I guess, but I guess it wasn't childhood. I guess it was more closer to adulthood. But when we knew each other back in the day, but people from my childhood, people from my neighborhood, Italian people, it's immediately family. If someone were, we did a lot of theater together, you and I, and you're automatically family. And so when you were like, hey, I'm coming to LA, it's like the Olive Garden, man. When you're here, you're family.
I love it.
So
and you made it feel like that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what, I don't care. Even if somebody I didn't like in high school, I'd still be your family. Come. Your family. I may not liked you very much back then, but wow, you're an adult now, so. I'm kidding. I loved everybody in high school. There's nobody I didn't like.
It's very politic of you to say.
It is true though. Now that I look back at everything, like I don't know if I didn't like anyone, but it's true. Like there was nobody that I look back at and say I didn't like that person. Everybody was wonderful, but it's theater. That's the magic of theater. Like, what? There's no a-holes in theater usually. Maybe there are like later on in their careers, but everybody's just trying to have fun. And that's what's great about theater. When, I teach an improv class here in LA, and it's for people and it's free, and it's for people who just moved here. I mean, anybody can join, but it's usually for people who just moved here to find their people, because it's hard to make friends when you first move to LA. So it's where people can find their people. And I'm very proud, by the way, to say I have there were two people who met, and they have two babies now from meeting at my improv class.
Oh, I was going to say, like, I bet you have a lot of sort of like relationships that have blossomed out of that.
That's my favorite part, is watching people get together. That's my favorite. It's my favorite part. Setting people up, or not setting people up, but just watching, when I start a show, I see all these people coming to do like a reading, and I'm like, they have no idea how awesome each other are. Like, I'll know them from different places, but they won't know each other. And I get so excited. I'm like, these two people are going to be best friends. And I'm just like waiting for them to start these amazing friendships. Because as you know, friendships through theater last forever. You may not do another show with them again, but I love theater. It's great for every reason, including that.
Well, so, yeah, like, let's talk more about sort of the theater that you do. I mean, because, again, like you said, we performed theater together for a number of years when we were younger. And I shouldn't say younger, when we first met. We're still very young.
Kids.
And but now you sort of focus more on the directing and acting, or what percentage of that breaks down for you? Like,
it's interesting because when I moved out here to be an actor, of course, but I started to get into theater because I wanted to start producing shows. The easiest way to get into a show is to create your own show. And you don't have to worry about anybody not casting you. So I started to do that, and then I realized I can't be in it and direct it, but I want the show to be good. So how about if I just direct them, and then once in a while I may show up, in a show or two. So I got into just producing shows. I act like, if a friend asks me to be in a project, I'll go act in it. I toured actually recently with an off-Broadway show called My Big Gay Italian Wedding. The New York cast was going around the country in a few cities and needed the best character in the show, I believe, Maurizio. And so I went to Florida and New Jersey with that off-Broadway cast there. That was the most fun I've had since I was in Chicago. I did Tony and Tina's. It was the most fun I've had since then. But producing shows, so I write too, and I wrote the Columbine Project. Which
is a huge deal, and which we should definitely talk about. It
was a huge deal. I mean, it still is. Yes, back in 2009, we went off Broadway. We did the LA premiere, and then a couple months later, we went off Broadway and did it at the Actors Temple Theater in basically Times Square. For that lasted, I think, 5 months, and then and we've done it almost every year since then, just to remind people, hey. This happened. And then a couple of other plays, both successful and some not so successful. And so that's what I do. I write, and then sometimes I will do a show that everybody knows or nobody has ever heard of, depending on my mood, I guess, at the time.
Well, and I think that your having started as an actor, I think, makes you really uniquely well suited to being a director, because it's like you're used to being on the receiving end of direction. And so, I don't know, like when we were talking, when Brian and I were out in LA, and you were just sort of casually telling me stories about shows that you were putting up at the time or whatever. And just the way that you know how to work with people is really astounding and really subtle and really, I think I haven't seen any of the shows that you've directed, obviously, just because of distance, but I just have to imagine that it just really puts these shows into the next stratosphere, just because like you're really good at getting to the heart of what makes a theatrical space work well.
Right. Well, so here's what I'm really bad at, and I'll be honest, I'm not the greatest director because I'm really bad at communication, getting my thoughts. When I'm working with a cast, my thoughts are very complete in my head, but I'm not very good at getting them out of my mouth correctly. So it takes a little while. However, what I do pat myself on the back is having the picture and knowing what will work and what won't work. And so I learned that the people who can deal with that are the ones I work with, and they know me, so they know what to expect. And so now with the same actors I always work with, it's much easier to, because what happens in my brain is I'll be telling you something, I'll be explaining something very well, and then all of a sudden something comes into my head that loses focus, and then I just sit there for a second like a deer in headlights. I'm like, oh no, I forgot to, take the coffee off or the tea off the stove, or you know what I mean, something like that, where all other thoughts go away and then I have to come back to the thoughts. So it's the way my brain works. So I'm not a great communicator as a director, but the final show is great.
But I think that you also, I think that you're selling yourself short, because I think you do have a way of understanding like what bonds a cast together, and like you were saying, at the top of the show about like sort of these improv classes that you teach, and like getting the opportunity to connect people to each other, like that. Almost, obviously everyone wants a show to be good, but like you were saying, creating these like lifelong bonds among people who perform together, like that, you seem to have like a real sixth sense for like you even said, like creating momentary antagonism against you. Like if you say something really outrageous, I was like, wow, that's really a perceptive way to.
When did I tell you that? That's great. You remember that I said that?
I do, because I thought it was so genius.
So that's a funny thing that you caught and kept with you, because I've never really told many people about that. So what I do is, am
I spilling your beans? Should
no.
edit this out?
No, that's great. Let's get it out. So if there's a cast, you're talking about if there's a cast problem, like two people aren't getting along. Is that what you're talking about?
Or I think that you even just in terms of sort of like like bonding the cast together so that they have something to talk about later, I think is
that's
the way
right.
that you said it. Yeah.
So here's the thing. I loved, and I learned it from my directors in high school were amazing people. They still are amazing people. But what I noticed was when something went wrong and like we were yelled at or something, everybody would come together and start talking about what it was. When I was in Tony and Tina's wedding, our director was very, he would throw chairs, he would get crazy. But at the same time, the cast would come together and talk about it and laugh about it and bond. And so I learned a long time ago, if there's an issue with your cast, if people aren't getting along, make sure they bond. And if it's over you, great. You can be you be the villain, but at the end of the day, they're going to get along, and on stage, it's gonna work better for them on stage. I learned that from my previous directors to when I started directing. There was another director, I forgot his name, John something. Those three directors who were great directors, but I learned that people will talk about you. You're the director. You're the leader. They're always going to talk about the leader of whatever group it is. And so I guess it's a little bit manipulation, but you got to have a good show. they will bond over the stories. And so if you give them a great story to tell. So when I was directing Columbine Project, I was thinking during a scene, it wasn't great and it wasn't bad, but I wanted them to bond and be better on stage. So I said, and I had this line ready for me. I had this line ready to say. It's not like I just thought of it. I was like, what? I need to give them a line where they can laugh at later together. And the line was, I want to gouge my eyes out with a potato peeler. And they still talk about it.
Mm.
And I'm telling you, after I said that, the scene was the best it has ever been in all the productions of the show. So there's a little bit of manipulation when you're a director or a leader. You have to make sure that you have the tools to get them to do things without actually, you could go to the, dramatically get them to do what you need to do. But bonding, yes, thank you for noticing that. Thank you for remembering that. That bonding is, it's the leader's responsibility to get them to bond, and you got to do whatever you have to do.
Well, and I just, right over the holidays, right in December, I just read the new oral history of Mike Nichols, the actor and director and writer, and all the stories about him are basically the same, that all the actors would say, like, yeah, you wouldn't know that anything was happening. You would just be having a conversation with Mike about, some topic, and then suddenly you go back to do the scene and you were better than you were before. And it was just through this like osmosis process of being around him. So I don't know, like, I'm just saying that, like, I'm thinking of like you and Mike Nichols, like, in the same breath right now in terms of like managing actors.
Yeah. Don't be mistaken. They're all absolutely wonderful. All the actors I've ever worked with are just amazing. I mean, there's the bad ones, but I've never worked with them again. The ones that I work with on a continual basis, they're just incredible people, and I just want to see them succeed.
Well,
which, by the way, cat is out of the bag, so I can tell you this. The owner of, because I don't own these theaters, I just manage them. The owner of the theater you were in is now the villain. He just got cast as the villain in the new Jurassic Park.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it's not cool. He's a real working actor. So it's great to see friends like get to success. You know what I mean?
Well, and I love that you're, specifically doing theater in LA, because it feels like this like sneaky way to like sneak artistry into that town. Which it's like the town is so much about like money and prestige and who's hustling who and whatever. And I love that like you're just like, all right, well, I'm just going to do theater over here, and it's going to like be this little pocket of sort of like weirdness and cool art that's like happening sort of a little bit under the radar, but then you have these peaks where, a lot of, there's that guy, and then there's other friends of yours who've been in, big Broadway shows and big TV shows and stuff.
Yeah. The list goes on and on. But speaking of theater, one more little lift of somebody. In 2009, I directed a play, or 2007, I directed a play called Twist, a musical rock opera out of New York. And I cast someone from Chicago who was here. And now she's the first transgender to ever be in the Broadway show Wicked. She's on Broadway right now doing Wicked.
Oh, it's amazing.
And so you see these people, go from, this small intimate theater, and in just a few years they're, huge. It's my favorite. It's one of my favorite things to see happen, besides the relationship thing, is to watch it. But by the way, Allison, theater's not as wonderful and glamorous as it may seem right now. It's not like I'm not making, billions off of theater in LA. But it's fun. It's what to do while you're waiting for your next big film gig for people here.
But like, I think that's what is cool about it. I mean, because that's sort of like all the people that I've been like really trying to gather to do this podcast and talk with are people who are sort of doing doing things because they're obsessed, or doing things because they need an outlet in whatever way it may be. And so like I find that energy interesting, the fact that like you're in LA doing theater, and like, yeah, you're not getting rich, but it's like there's clearly something there that's enriching you on another level beyond money, which is like why you keep doing it. And so like that's I like the idea of leaning into like whatever that is for you.
And it's really building relationships with people, because, you know, it takes about 10 years for someone to be a celebrity or get to be very successful. It takes about 10 years. So if you're here more than 10 years, you're watching all these people that you've hung out with and know, you know, become these great celebrities, or, you know, they get a big gig on a sitcom or whatever. And what theater does is it creates these relationships with each other, where, say, somebody becomes a casting director and they're like, hey, I worked with you, you know, for so long, and now, you know, I'm going to put you in this thing because I know you and I know that I can trust you. And it's building these relationships. Every film gig that I've gotten, or TV gig, is from the theater. I don't actively audition for anything. I don't even remember the last audition I went on. It's from knowing people who've seen me in this play, or know that, you know, I could do this role or whatever. And that, so basically you are sitting around and someone is going to knock on your door while you're sitting around. They say, you know, no one's going to cast you if you just sit around in your room all day. Well, when you have really great relationships with people, you can actually sit in your room and wait for the call.
That's really cool.
So that's what's great about theater, especially if you just moved to LA and you know, you're just starting out. Do as much theater as possible, because it's the relationships you make with the people, plus you get to practice and experience, you know.
That's awesome. Well, so let's rewind back. Like, do you mind like talking us through like your Tony and Tina's wedding years a little bit?
Yeah. I think it was 2000. I auditioned for Tony and Tina's wedding when it was, you know, every weekend, every week at Piper's Alley. And I did that for 5 years with 2 breaks. And by break, I mean moving and then coming back and joining the show again. Short breaks, though. And that was incredible. What do you want to know about it? It was so much fun.
I mean, just talk us through sort of, yeah, what the process was, because that seems like, you know, it's not a play where you get up on stage and just sort of say your lines and then go home. I mean, there's this whole interactive component to it. So it's like, it's improv, but it's also sort of like crowd management and improv, and but then also I'm sure having to like hit your blocking and hit your moments and stuff. And
it changed my life. You know, when I was in Tony and Tina's wedding, I worked with some of the most incredible comics I've known to this day, comedic actors. So basically, it's an interactive wedding. You're actually going to the wedding of Tony and Tina, and you, as an actor, you know the story. You have something that, you know, a Bible, basically, a bios of each character. You know every character. So while you're interacting with the audience, you know a story. And so you're telling them the story so that when another actor comes around and starts telling the story, you're on the same page. So you're not telling 2 different stories. You know the story and you can play with that story. Because so most of it's scripted. The church is mostly scripted. And then you go into to the reception. And then while everybody's eating, you just go around and tell the story of Tony and Tina and all their friends. I played Tina's brother, her gay brother, who is a dance fiend. I couldn't dance, but I guess I made do with what I could do, which was basically goofy. And so when I auditioned, so I saw it when I was 18, right? When I got out of high school, I saw the show. It had just opened. And that character, I looked at that character and I was like, that is the best character. I want to play that character. I want to play that character someday. And so the auditions came up and I got in to play that character. And each character is actually played by about 3 different actors. So each actor plays 3 different roles about. So every day you go in, you find out which character you're playing that day.
Is that just to keep it fresh? Like, what's the philosophy behind that?
So if somebody like can't do the show, it's fine. It's covered. So there's a staff. So when you first start, you get put on the cater waiter list. So you're a cater waiter. So you have a character as the cater waiter, but basically you're just doing all the staff stuff.
Yeah.
But you still have a character, so it's still fun. And then, if somebody's missing, they just move the actors up. They adjust it. Somebody that's cater waiter gets a chance to play one of the roles that they've been studying. And then, but it's also to keep the show fresh. So no show is ever the same.
So how was it like working like with the crowd every night like that?
I learned so much. I actually do stand up now. Hold on, there's a plane. I actually do stand up now, working the crowd. And so I learned so much from that I'm never shy to just have a conversation with the people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's great. So Frankie Avalon would come once a year for a week and do shows. And when those shows happened, there wasn't any room in the place. So everybody loved Frankie. It was known as Frankie Week. And so we would, working with those people is hard because they came to see Frankie. They didn't come to see your stupid little skit. And so it was very difficult. It was a blast though, man. I had a blast working with the crowd. It was great because I used to be kind of a shy person. I didn't really want to have conversations with strangers, but when you're playing a character, it's very different. Once you're playing a character, you are that character, so that character is outgoing. You don't have to worry about it. You just sit back, and as long as you know what you're talking about, you're good. But I worked.
So
I worked.
go ahead.
And you know who was in the show with me was I'm a name dropper today. I don't know why.
Do it.
Jeff Morrow, the Sandwich King.
I don't know who that is.
He won the Food Network star. He's very famous in Chicago.
Okay, all right.
When I moved to LA, because the show's so much fun, you leave and you're just filled with adrenaline. When I moved to LA, I created a show very similar, but a gay wedding, because I wanted that fun again. And I wanted other actors in LA to see what fun it is to interact with the audience at a wedding. I love wedding shows. Wedding shows are my favorite. This theater company that I created it with, they had a little church on the side. And so I was like, this is the perfect place. So I created all the characters. I created all the bios. I knew how to do it. And then I swear to God, they said, you know what, we don't need you. I went to New York to do the Columbine Project. And when I came back, they said, we don't need you anymore. The show is ours now. And they stole my show.
Yeah, you got into some legal wrangling with them, didn't you?
Yeah, well, no, because I couldn't afford a lawyer, of course. But my sister called me from Ohio one day. She said, hey, there's a show over here that they're doing that's very similar to the one you did. And I said, what? And she sent me a clip of a newspaper, and it was my show. These were what was crazy about it was I had names from my family, names from my history. These characters were named after people I knew, and so it was hard for them to deny it. But they still, to this day, there were some newspaper articles that said I was right, obviously. But they still, to this day, I'm just waiting for them to do it again. I'm like, come on, I know lawyers now. Come on, bring it on. But it's hard when it's hard to prove. I can prove it 100% because the original program said created by, and then the next time they did it, it said additional material by.
Oh, burn! Come on, guys.
I know. See, they're some crazy folks, but I think they're gone now, so we'll see.
Well, so as we're talking about sort of, I wouldn't call this a greatest hits, but, something that came from you and that, turned out to be a big deal even, even though they scammed you out of it. But yeah, talk us through a little bit of the Columbine Project and how that came to be, and like I said, how it became such a big success.
When I moved to LA, on my way here, the first time, by the way, this is my third time. When I moved here the first time, a good friend of mine and I drove a U-Haul, and I had just gotten off a tour with a children's show. We toured the Midwest, and that's when Columbine happened. And then we were moving 2 weeks later. So on the exact 2-week anniversary, it was the first day they all went back to school, actually. I'll never forget
Jesus.
that. We went there and we saw everything. Now, I mean, we saw the aftermath and the news trucks and the people, and we toured the campus, and it was insane. And being young idiots on our way there, we were like, oh yeah, this is going to be so cool. We're going to see where it happened. Da, 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 da. As soon as we drove into the town, that stopped. That immaturity of the situation stopped.
Sure.
You could feel it. I've never felt anything like it since. It was 2:00 in the morning, and we were trying to find a little hotel in the area, and we could just feel the sadness. And then when we toured it, we felt, we saw that it was a real thing that really happened, and it was very sad, and that never left me. That was, I think, 1999. Yeah, 1999. Duh. And then 10 years later, I was like, I'm going to write a play about it. Get this out of my system. And then I interviewed some of the victims and did a lot of research, read all the books, and then wrote this play, the docudrama, what really happened that nobody really knew of, that nobody ever reported on. And then, so the Rachel Scott, her father saw it, her father and mother saw it. She was the first person killed. They came and saw it and did a Q&A with us afterwards. Anyway, and then we thought, hey, let's go to New York and do this. And so we went to New York and did it. And by the way, the success of the Columbine Project was one of my good close friends, producing partner at the time, Bree Pavey. She actually was responsible for much of the success of that show. She is the one who spearheaded the New York trip. She's the one who arranged everything. She's the one who hundreds of thousands of dollars of her own money was spent to make sure that her credit was ruined, to make sure that this show was seen in New York. And so I give her most of the credit for making that show successful.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good to have friends.
But it really moves people. People are really touched by it. I mean, all the press that I've seen around it, people are universally really moved by the piece.
Yeah, it's a tearjerker. What was fun with me in the very first run, I was in the booth doing all the sound and lights, and I would sit up in the booth, and I wouldn't watch the show. I would watch the audience. That was my come on, cry. Come on, cry. And when the lights go out, so the guys would die. The two leads would die on stage. And then they didn't get a curtain call because we didn't think it was appropriate. Some people didn't like that idea, but we didn't give them a curtain call. They knew it. The actors knew it. And when the lights came up after everybody else took a curtain call and the boys never came out, people would sit there in silence. And you'd hear nothing. Nobody would get up, and you'd just hear sniffling and, wheezing, crying. And it was, as theater, because I know the show is sad, I wrote it. When I was doing the research, I broke down, and because I was getting to know these people, I broke down. And so all my breaking down had already passed. So now the theater experience of watching something move people so much where they would sit in silence and tears and cry. I'm like, that's theater. That is what theater is about. It's about making people feel something.
Yeah.
And so it's really special to me and really important to me. And, we pretty much successfully every time we've redone the show. And then last year, another company did it, and then it moved to another theater with another company, directed by actually Bree Pavey, the one who is responsible for the success of it. And then it was in, I want to say Baltimore, Maryland did it. Some company did it there. But it's not published. It's not with Sam French. I think they denied it because there was another similar show.
Oh, no.
But that's okay. That's okay. I'm not looking for... Plus, as a writer, like, you don't want people to touch your stuff. I mean, you do because you're going to make a lot of money, but I'm very weird about... because I've seen what I've done with other people's shows.
How do people find it then? If it's not with Sam French?
Twitter. Twitter did. Oh. That's how Marilyn found out about it. Twitter. I wish that more people knew about it, and wanted to do it, but I don't know. It's
also, if anyone's listening to this podcast and they want to do it, do they just Twitter at you? Like, how do they find it?
Twitter at me. They will, I don't know, they'll text me. No, yeah. Facebook, Twitter. We're on Twitter. It's We Are Columbine on Twitter. They can look at that stuff and send us a message. That's how Baltimore got it. But I'm thinking of writing it into a novel. Because, again, there's important information about what happened that nobody ever talks about. So... Yeah, I'll tell you one of the small things that nobody knew was that this was before September 11th. This was April of 99. And they were talking about planes going into into New York City. Sorry, not World Trade Center, to New York City, about flying planes into New York City and destroying as many people as possible. And then September, and he said, and then September 11th happened, and that was one of the killer's birthday, was September 11th.
Oh, wow.
And so that was very interesting that he wanted somebody to do that, on his birthday, because they did it on Hitler's birthday.
Right.
And so he wanted someone to do that on his birthday, and it happened on his birthday. It was crazy.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's crazy information.
Yeah, I'd never heard that.
Yeah. It's fun. Is this am I boring you?
No, things were getting heavy, but I'm not bored. Yeah.
I'm boring myself.
Well, what do you have coming up, like show wise? Like, is there what's the next project that's happening that you're really super excited about?
I'm writing a play right now about death. So let's get deep, okay? Ready? Let's get deep.
Let's do it. Right, let's do it.
Some of us have had our moms die at a young age.
Who could you be talking about? Are you talking about anyone on this podcast right now?
Me and you.
Yes.
And so my mom died when I was 6, followed very shortly after by my dad. And
my mom died when I was 8.
8, right. And you can't help but think, as you grow into an adult, what would I be if that had not happened? Where would I be? What would I do? And some woman, a very close friend of mine, I said some woman, but she's actually a close friend of mine. Her name is Stephanie. When I told her, because I don't talk about it often, so when people find out, they often, oh my gosh, you get that, When I told her, she looked at me and she said, "What a gift." And I looked at her at first. I was like, what? Why would you say that? And then it clicked to me. I was like, hold on a second. I need to investigate this. She's right. And I thanked her for saying that, because I wouldn't be where I am today, if it hadn't happened, lives would have been completely changed, different. Who knows what would happen? So what would have happened if it hadn't happened? So I'm exploring that by this play that I'm almost done with. It's going to be produced this year at some point soon, about a woman. And so half of the stage, we're seeing the story of if her mom had never died, and half of the stage if her mom that her mom did die. The question that this play proposes is, are you better off that your parent died? People have to take care of their parents when they're old. They get to know their parents. They have to watch their parent die. When you're young, is it better that you lose your parents at a young age and it's over? You never have to worry about that again. A lot of good things come of that, but a lot of bad things too. Or getting to know your parents, because they're going to die, whether it's when you're young or when you're old. But is it better that they're already gone when you're young, or you have to watch them pass on? And so it explores that conversation.
I love that. Because I mean, like I've found that, like, you know, for a long period of time, I was sort of like, you know, the person that people would come to talk about like death and grief and stuff. And then there hit this point sort of in my like mid to late 30s where I stopped feeling like any kind of authority, because it was like the relationship that people were having as their parents were dying as they were older. I was like, I don't have any perspective on what it's like to mourn that, you know. That's like right. And especially, you know, with my mom. I mean, my dad had a stroke when I was 25, and then he passed when I was 33. So even that's pretty young, you know. And so like as people, like, you know, towards late 30s and early 40s, I was like, I don't know what that relationship is like, you know, like what you're losing is totally different from what I lost, you know. It's so that's cool. Yeah. I love that you're thinking through those things.
My sisters, I had a hard time with it as a kid. Really hard time with it as a kid. Partly how I was raised. My childhood wasn't miraculous. Luckily, theater saved me. My sisters say all the time, they're like, well, you know, it's sad because our mom, blah, blah. And I say, look, you wouldn't have your children. You wouldn't have your husbands that you're in love with, that you met, that are your soulmates. You have these beautiful children that would never have existed if this had never happened. So it had to happen for this to happen. It had to happen. So, you know, I'm not saying they're sad about it. We talk about it, you know, we openly speak of it. And so it's like, at the times that they're sad, or I'm sad, it's like, get over it. This would never have happened if that had not occurred. So,
well, and I don't think it's a matter of like get over it. It's almost exactly what you're dramatizing in the show, where it's like both of those things coexist in the same space. You know, it's like the sadness and the I wish it wouldn't have happened, and the joy of realizing that my life exists because it happened. Like those things they're on stage at the same time. So I think that's a profound way to think through that.
And your relationships with other people, because if, you know, when people die now, you know, you as in us, you know, the most important person to us, you know, the most important person to us in the world ever passed away. So not saying that everybody else is not as important, but we've already had the most terrifying experience, the most traumatic experience. So when other people in our lives, well, at least mine, I can't speak for you, but when other people die, that's really sad. But I don't have any emotion. I mean, I do have emotion, but it's not as it's going to happen. I can break off a relationship, friend or romantic, much easier now. And I don't know if that's a gift or a curse, but it's much easier to let go of something in your life and be okay with it and move on, because we've had to move on from something that traumatic. Or I'm sorry, I keep speaking for you.
Well, I mean, it's similar. Yeah, it's definitely, yeah, I think that, yeah, motherless children have a similar trajectory, no matter how different circumstances can be. But so, yeah, no, I don't mind you speaking in the plural.
And so when I meet somebody who also had a mother pass away, or a father pass away at a young age, I'm like, family, come do a show. I'm just kidding.
Right. Well, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of true though, right?
Your family. But I understand them a lot more. It's easier to understand somebody who went through a similar tragedy. It's crazy. I come from, I'm not going to go into that. Personalities. I wish I was a psychologist, because I think I get people, but I don't have the education to back up my theories. But behavior is one of the most interesting things to me. How somebody would act, in this play in particular, how this girl would be now and what she would be if it had never happened. And actually in the play, she doesn't get along with her mom. She never got along with her mom. Her mom was a horrible person. And what I'm exploring with that is, I know a lot of people who don't have great relationships with their mom. And I say, wow, that's crazy, because you have a mom.
Right.
And so how could it be anything but love? But, they have terrible relationships. So I created this character to have a terrible relationship with her mom. So what's better, losing your mom or having a terrible relationship with her?
Right.
But everything's patched up at the end, and I hope you come see it.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, I gotta, I sort of feel like, after having been out in LA, several times in the past few years, I sort of feel like more comfortable out there, and more sort of like, oh yeah, my second home out in LA, and in some way.
Too expensive.
Well, yeah.
It's crazy expensive. Oh my God. In the last 10 years, it went from affordable to, oh my God, what do I have to do now to afford to live here? It's horrible. Horribly expensive. There's people with 47 roommates in a 1-bedroom apartment. Not me.
Well, speaking of second homes, I would love to round this out, or before we round out our chat here, I would love for you to talk about Sicily. Speaking of family.
Thank you for asking about that. I love that subject. My dad was born and raised in Sicily, and then he moved here and met my mom. And so I still have family there. I have my uncle, my dad's brother, who lives there. And so I go every chance I can. It's my favorite place on earth. People send pictures of their favorite place on earth, and I'm like, no, it compares nothing to this. It's so beautiful. Everything is beautiful. The people, the food. I have so many great friends and family there, and second cousins, third cousins. And it's so old there that my cousin is like 80. That's how old it is. It's just beautiful. Have you been?
Oh, I was in Italy very briefly, but I've never been to Sicily.
Okay. It's so different. I have no interest in Italy. I don't. It's Sicily. It's so perfect and beautiful. The beaches are blue, bright blue. I've taken 2 friends there with me. My dream as a kid when I've been there is like, I want to bring somebody who's never been here and has no strings to here to show them this. And I've brought in the last 10 years 2 friends with me, and so my friends, I don't have many rich friends. My friends are, theater people. So it's hard to find somebody who has the money to go, but I'm always willing to be like, look, I'm going. If you want to come with, let's go. It's great.
Well, I'm going to scrape together my money at some point and make you take me, because I would love to go and see it from the inside, see it with sort of, someone who's very deeply familiar with it, see it from your perspective.
So I'm trying to go again this summer, if I can wrangle up the money, come with. And I'm going to take a tour that I've never taken before, which is I'm going to try to go the outline of Sicily and go to every beach. Well, not every beach. I
Cool.
can't do every beach, but I'm going to try to tour around because usually I just stay in the small town in the center of the island. But and then I go to the beach every once in a while. But I want to really see what's great about Sicily. It's been owned by so many different nationalities in its past that there's all kinds of different types of churches and mosques that are turned into churches over the years. Just very beautiful.
How much Italian do you speak?
Poco. Very little. I spoke pretty good when I was a kid, and then every time I go back, that's the heart. That's so funny you touch on that subject. It's a touchy subject with me because my uncle speaks English. And so broken, very, very broken, but he speaks English. And so when I go there, I mean, it's a lot of fake sign language and Googling now, or translating. It's tough, but it's tough to have a conversation with people because I don't speak. I speak it enough to get by, but they know I'm a foreigner, so it's a little embarrassing. So I just give up and just, make a fool of myself to kind of make them laugh. It's a lot easier than being embarrassed.
I just wasn't sure, how where your language skills were at.
But it's weird because the food there, I could bring the same dish over here and it doesn't taste anything like it. I don't know what the science is behind the air and the water, but it's a completely different. You could have the exact same recipe, and it just doesn't taste the same. So I go there for the food.
I love it. Like I said, I'm gonna foist myself upon you at some point in this lifetime and go there with you.
Please, you and Brian, you're welcome. You guys can do I'll try to get a amphitheater. I'm nothing over there, nothing. But I'll try.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for being on the podcast with me today. This was an amazing conversation. I knew we were going to have like zillions and zillions of things to talk about.
Yes, thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this, and I could go 3 more hours with you, Allison. This is great.
Well, is there anything else you want to shout out? You've got the show coming up that you're finishing working on, and do you have like social media places where you want people to come and find you, or
sure.
More information?
Oh, I'm the creator and the president of the Valley Theater Awards, and it's a theater of 400 people getting awards for all the theater in the Valley near Los Angeles. And so that's coming up. Just wanted to say that. And then for me, I think my Twitter is real Paul Storiale, because there's a fake one out there trying to be me. And that's my Instagram, I guess, not Twitter. Twitter, I think it's the same. Yeah. I'm not very.
And I'll link to it all in the show notes on my blog.
Oh yeah, my TikTok is great too. My TikTok. I'm just kidding.
Are you on TikTok?
I am, but I don't tell anybody what my name is because just in case of failure, I hate failure.
I'm not on TikTok, so I mean, I would promote it for you if you wanted to, but I won't find you because I'm not on it myself. So
you have to get a TikTok. They're so fun.
Well, I mean, the ones that I've seen are like really, really funny and amusing. So I may be tempted. I love my technology.
Yeah, I was gonna buy. Well, until you said that, I was gonna call you Boomer.
No, I'm in that little abandoned generation that doesn't really have a name.
Oh my god, I know, we're so abandoned. That's right.
It's totally abandoned because even Brian and I were just talking because he's end of Gen X. I mean, just fully, because he's sort of he was born in 73, but 79 is not really a generation that exists, unfortunately. And
I was thinking real quick, I know we're in a hurry to go, but leap year, I think was yesterday. Anyway.
No, it's today. It's today.
But I was helping you because your podcast goes out.
We're recording. We're recording on Leap Day, but it will debut in March. Yes.
You could have, if you're 28 years old and your birthday's on leap year, you could say you're 28 for 4 years.
It's true.
But then go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to make the Pirates of Penzance joke. I was born in leap year for all of our theater nerds that are going to be listening to this.
Theater nerds. Thank you again. And I miss you, your bright, shiny, smiling face.
No, I miss you too. It was so wonderful to, again, just be with you in LA, and I'm sure we'll be back pretty soon.
Good. Let me know. I'll hook you up.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Bye.
So, if you live in the Los Angeles area, be sure to check out Paul's improv classes and make yourself some new lifelong friends. If you're a Facebook user, look up when the next classes will be running on the Defiance Productions profile there, or just go to defiancetheatercompany.com. And of course, be sure to keep an eye on Paul's social media accounts for more information and behind-the-scenes hilarity. He's on Instagram at @TheRealStoriale and on Twitter as Paul Storiale. And if you're not in LA, you can still stream Gossip Boy, which I'm so sorry that we didn't remember to talk about at all during that chat. It's up on Amazon Prime, both Season 1 and Season 2. And if you or someone you know are interested in staging a production of the Columbine Project, you can get in touch through Twitter at WeAreColumbine or send a message to thecolumbineproject@gmail.com. All these links will be in the show notes over on my blog at queenofpeaches.com. Thanks so much for listening. Bye for now.